Hi, I'm Tony Vlahos for ExecuNet. If you're like most executives, your career takes up most of your time and energy. And you may find yourself too busy, tired, or unmotivated to devote your full attention to nurturing the intimate connection you crave with your life partner. So, how do you reclaim the excitement and how can you make passion last? Joining me today is someone who believes that great love affairs are created by couples who learn the skills of becoming passion. Dr. Cheryl Fraser is a media psychologist and sex therapist, as well as a Dharma teacher, speaker, and writer. Her latest release is a savvy guide titled Buddha's Bedroom: The Mindful Loving Path to Sexual Passion and Lifelong Intimacy. She joins me now to talk about some of the enlivening and playful practices that busy, super stressed executives like you can use to rekindle the flames of passion and reconnect with your significant other. Cheryl, hello.
Hello, Tony. It's great to be with you this morning.
Oh, it's great to be with you as well. So I mentioned busy executives, which equates for most of us with long hours, lots of stress, jobs that require us to travel a lot and be away from our loved ones. That doesn't sound like a recipe for a romantic evening at home. Is that a pretty familiar story, Cheryl?
Yeah, in fact, it's a recipe for disaster for your romantic relationship, which is why, of course, divorce, affairs, and other crash and burns in our romantic life are so common, particularly for those of us who are really rocking and rolling in our career. So, how can we not so much bring the two together, but prioritize and nurture them both? So we're going to obviously focus on the romantic relationship. I assume your listeners are doing pretty well in the rocking and rolling their career realm. Uh,
Mostly.
Mostly, some of the principles are really similar for business success and relationship success. That may not sound like a romantic lead in, but bear with me. Think about things like goal setting, prioritizing, um, cutting away the chaff and really focusing on the stuff that matters. These are the same principles that people need to bring to the romantic sexual relationship. And I like to remind people that we can't rely on the early lust and interest and intrigue of falling in love and dating when it kind of took care of itself. I was absolutely fascinated by you. I thought about you all day long. Do you know that the biochemistry of falling in love actually mimics the biochemistry of obsessive compulsive disorder? And most of us have been there where we think like it's an obsessive loop of thinking about that person and sending them a sexy note or um, thinking about them getting a thrill of lust in our body. And most of us, as we move into our longer term relationship, find, gee whiz, that doesn't happen as easily as before. So that's where planning, prioritizing, choice, and a mindful awareness of bringing that to your partner are so important.
Mhm. You write in the book, Cheryl, that happiness is an inside job. Can you talk to me a bit about how happiness affects our relationships, like our marriage, where one day we wake up and we find, oh, it's boring, it's so, I'm
Mm.
semi-happy in my marriage.
Mhm.
What is going on there with us?
Great question, and I want to reverse the question in a way. How does happiness affect our marriage? Let's for a moment talk about research that shows our marriage affects our happiness.
Mhm.
One of the main research findings of the last many decades is that if our romantic relationship is going well, we're fairly happy, even if our business life is not going well, and vice versa. If our business life is going great, but our romantic relationship's not going well, our happiness takes a deep dive. So, how do we create happiness, happiness being an inside job, not an unfamiliar refrain in the last 5 or 10 years? But I mean it really literally. I actually draw on the deeper Buddhist teachings in my work, as well as mindfulness secular teachings. And ultimately, whatever happens, Tony, let's say I go up after this interview and my tire's flat on my car and I've got to head somewhere important. That's reality. Reality has happened. I have a flat tire. Whether I'm upset about the flat tire or kind of have ease and equanimity about this unfortunate reality is up to my brain, up to my mind, up to Cheryl's choice, how I'm going to react to this situation. I can freak out and have a rotten day, phone my friends, oh, I'm having a terrible day, all that stuff. That's all inside. It's in my mind. The tire's external. It's reality. It is what it is. And currently that's flat. That's when I call my mechanic or my whomever Or, hey, I'm a tough chick. I change it myself, whatever I do. How does that apply to love relationship? Well, very simply, on the lower level, we're not talking about major problems in what I'm about to say, and we're certainly not talking about drug abuse, alcohol abuse, or domestic issues like that. But I'm talking about regular stuff where I, as your partner, am annoyed or upset or disappointed in something you've done or not done. Now, as I say in the book and in my teachings, I am not upset with you. It sure as heck feels that way, right? You promised you'd take me out for a date and then you got busy at work and you got home late and you actually completely gapped. You come home, la, 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 let's watch our favorite Netflix program. And I'm like, Tony, you said tonight was the night where we're going to go out to that new restaurant. I'm actually upset with my mind. Now, bear with me. This is not a blaming teaching where I'm saying, Cheryl, it's your own fault you're upset that Tony gapped on your date. What you did wasn't respectful, mindful, or a good prioritizing of our love affair. But my misery, much like my misery about the hypothetical flat tire, is caused by my own mind state. And there I have some choice and some power. And those of us that are busy, in my case, entrepreneur, executives, etc., we know about the power of mindset. We know about the power of choosing to deal with an unexpected issue by either freaking out or being more clear and getting a better result. So if I'm really disappointed in you, I can first turn to my mind and say, okay, I am now miserable, but I feel like it's Tony's fault. I feel like it's my relationship's fault because he said he'd take me out and he broke his promise. However, if I can get on top of my mind and bring my mind to calmness, bring my mind to seeing this is the reality. Tony's a flat tire in my life tonight. Sorry, buddy.
I've been
I
called
can,
worse.
I won't go there. I can then say, okay, babe, super disappointed that you gapped. Feeling pretty hurt right now. Trying to get on top of it. How do we redo this? How do we remake this? And hopefully, if I've slid this book under your pillow and you've read it, you're like, okay, I need to set a stronger priority, do my to-do list. The same way I didn't forget my important meeting with the vice president today, I've got to be clear I don't forget my personal commitments. It's a small bit of advice, and a lot of people listening may be saying, yeah, I know that, but I want to challenge you. Are you doing it? Are you treating your relationship and your love affair like it is an incredibly important meeting? Because it is, for goodness sakes. We already mentioned that it predicts your happiness far more than your career success does, is your romantic and sexual and intimate happiness and connection.
Right. Very fascinating stuff. So if you're in a marriage, Cheryl, that's reached, I'll say, the point of coexisting because you're
Right.
not doing the things that you've talked about and have written about, I guess the first question is, can you shake that off, or is it the death knell of the relationship? And if it's not, what steps can we take to make things better?
Right. Okay. And this is probably the number one thing that brings people to couples therapy is just this. I feel like I love them. We're pretty good parents. We coexist well, to use your term, but there's no passion. There's no real connection. I'm lonely within the relationship. And I frankly hate to admit it, but I'm kind of bored with my mate, maybe not as attracted to them so much anymore. All of this I tend to call marriage incorporated, that we're kind of running the business of our coexisting partnership, parenting. We go to Cape Cod for a week in summer or whatever we do, but there isn't any real juice. And I'll briefly sketch out, because people find this pretty helpful. I refer to something I call the passion triangle, which are like the three keys to a long-term passionate relationship. And I encourage and at times gently bully people into checking out where they're strong and where they're weak in these three things. And briefly, they're thrill, which we referred to a little bit ago, that early falling in love feelings, butterflies in the stomach, lust, excitement, obsessive compulsive thoughts about you. That obviously tends to fade over time, as our evolutionary imperative is to catch and mate with the object of our affection. Then we move into cave nesting and sort of contentment. So thrill does tend to fade, but I do not buy the often simply accepted adage that the thrill can't last forever. It often doesn't last forever, but that doesn't have to happen. So we can start juicing up thrill by doing something as simple as going out tonight for appies or a cup of tea or dinner and asking each other really interesting questions that we haven't asked in a long time, like, There's an exercise in the book, and you can just Google up cool questions to ask your partner. But things like, hey, if we won some crazy contest that gave us 3 vacation homes anywhere in the world without any cost, what 3 places would you want a home and why?
Mhm.
When's the last time you asked that kind of question to get more interested in your spouse? So thrill is the first of the 3 keys to maintaining, or more for most of us, not maintaining, reigniting long-term passion. We used to have it and it feels slumbering or even dead. Can it be, given a defibrillator and woken up again? Thrill is one. What I call intimacy here, I'm not using that word here as a euphemism for sexuality, the way a lot of people do. I mean emotional, psychological connectedness, intimacy, that deep sense of you know me and I know you. You've got my back. You are actually interested about what happened for me today at work. You're truly interested and you care. You ask questions. You catch what researcher John Gottman calls little bids for connection I make. Hey, you go, hey, what's up? These little moments of intimacy, often couples in Marriage Incorporated are pretty strong in intimacy, extremely lacking in thrill, and fairly flatlined in the 3rd key to passion. Again, I just call it the passion triangle. It's an easy way to remember it. Thrill, intimacy, and sensuality. Here by sensuality, I mean the entire spectrum of sexual and romantic and erotic connection. Everything from eye contact to holding hands when we go for a walk, to when we're driving, the passengers got their hand on the driver's knee, to, of course, kissing, and the entire spectrum of sexuality. People are really boring in their sexual life in long-term relationships en masse. And for the few people listening that are the exceptions, I applaud you. And for the rest of us, come on, when's the last time you licked the back of your partner's knees? When's the last time you spent time having a gourmet meal of sexuality instead of fast food, or your regular, what I call, and I hope this isn't too tongue-in-cheek. Man, tongue-in-cheek sounds bad when you're a sex therapist. But anyway, I call it nipple, nipple, crotch, good night as the typical long-term
Got
relationship
it.
sex. Everybody gets that line when I say it. They're like, oh, I roll, guilt. Yeah. Like, hey, you do your thing and they do their thing, and hopefully you both have an orgasm, and that's great. But there's almost no creativity, passion, interest, or spice. Come on, people. We're better than that. And I don't mean that tonight we're going to be swept up in spontaneous lust the way we were in the early days. That's biochemically and psychologically unlikely. But we can work to create that type of lust and excitement and sensual connection and desire using our mind. We're back to the mind.
Mhm.
After all, lust is in the mind. Attraction's in the mind. Sexual desire is in the mind. Sexual arousal is in the body. And we can use the mind as a way to create arousal. I want to mention, because I think it's really relevant to your audience, there's research, Rosemary Basson, her research of the female circular sexual response cycle. Let's cut to the chase. What she finds is that the majority of long-term couples start making love when neither of them is turned on. What? Let me repeat that. The
Wow.
majority of long-term couples start making love when neither of them, or at least one of them, but often neither of them, is actually particularly turned on. What does that mean? What it means is they're kind of like, gosh, it's been 10 days. We should probably have sex. Okay. They have a shower, they start kissing, they start their routine, the body catches up. The
Mm.
choice to say, let's engage in lovemaking starts the process, and bodies tend to catch up. And as I like to mention, after we make love in a scenario just like I've described, nobody says, gee, I wish we hadn't done that. No. In fact, usually what we say is, I'm really glad we did that. Babe, we should do that more often. We've been really lazy.
Right. Good decision. Good decision.
Good decision. High five. Well executed, right? And I can hear at least some people saying, but Cheryl, that's not romantic. And I like to say, well, what's not romantic? Never having sex.
Mm.
So again, back to priorities, goal setting. Oh my goodness, really? Really? We're busy, our time is limited, and let's also talk about the elephant in the room. We're tired.
Mhm.
We usually relegate our sexual romantic life to 10, 11, 11:30 at night after a 12 to 16-hour blitz of a day. And then we're surprised we don't feel spontaneously super aroused or spontaneously motivated, and the couch and Netflix sounds like a better option. So we need to take our mind and change it. And I don't mean to make that sound like it's easy or instantaneous, but it's absolutely possible. Like any behavior change, any choice to change a bad habit we've got into, in this case, laziness around our passion triangle. We're getting lazy around creating thrill. We're getting kind of resting complacently on intimacy, but that's often also impaired in busy people in that I'm so overwhelmed with my own mental to-do list and my own day that I'm not actually creating interest to say, hey, Tony, tell me about your day. You had some interviews today. You had that meeting. What do you know? Great love takes a bit of effort, and that's
Mm,
not a bad thing. Everything else we do that matters in our career, our fitness, our hobbies. My goodness, you want to learn to be a golfer? You put some effort in. And we
right.
need to treat our relationship more that way. I often use this phrase. There's a chapter in the book that's about make your love life a hobby
Hmm.
because none of us want to work on our relationship. Oh my God, I just worked all day. I'm exhausted. But a hobby, by definition, is something we look forward to. It's something we prioritize. There's that word again. We make time for it. If I want to golf, I figure out my weekend to try to get a 4 hour slot where I can go to the golf course. It's really a simple concept, and I find people really resonate with it when they start to switch their mindset away and say, how can I make my love relationship a hobby? How can I say, hey, we've got a 2 hour time slot on Sunday. Why don't we go explore something new? Why don't we go to a new market and try a new restaurant? And better yet, let's make love before we go. There's a simple tip.
Hmm.
Make love before you go on your date, when you still have some energy, instead of when you get home and you're really tired.
It also builds up an appetite for that dinner, right?
And yes, and then you've got oxytocin kind of stimulated. You're feeling kind of like that post lovemaking glow. You're frankly feeling more affectionate toward each other.
Mhm.
Tends to dissolve a bit of our kind of sense of separateness, me against you, even not in an arguing way, which of course happens too much anyway, but just like, wow, I feel good and gracious. And then you're out, and a lot of couples report to me if they make love and then go on a date, they're all relaxed because they're not kind of like, oh, we should probably make love later and I might be tired. It's that simple sometimes to just say,
Yeah,
that felt great. And maybe it's not a romantic comparison, but it's like getting to the gym in the morning and then you've done it and you're like,
right,
yeehaw, that's done. It's not kind of, oh, I should probably go
right.
to the gym. Mhm.
As you write, and everyone is watching, it's a precious, precious book. Please pick it up. Passion is a choice. This is what we're
Yeah.
coming down to.
Yeah.
And once you've made it and you're living it, man, it's so much better than without it, right?
Right. And it's also better than what is too frequent and too common of an experience for each of us, which is we give up on the love affair we have, go through a very painful separation, divorce, breakup process. Then we fall in love again. We have all that great biochemistry and psychological intensity. And then in 6 months to 2 years, that starts to fade and change. And we end up thinking, oh no, I thought Tony was the right person. He clearly wasn't because it faded. Then I thought John or Joan was the next right person. Then it faded. I guess I need a third, a fifth, an eighth
Mhm.
person. Come on, we need to use our intellect and say, hang on a second, that model seems to be suspiciously out of kilter. What's the piece that I'm missing? The piece we're missing is that anyone who's exciting can become boring later if we don't keep our mind interested. I like to say that for every fascinating, I don't know, celebrity or rock star out there, there's a long term partner who's bored with them. And we see it, don't we?
Mhm.
With the affairs,
Right.
with the breakups.
Sure.
That long term partner does not have to be bored with them. I don't know. I'm thinking, okay, I'm aging myself here, but I'm thinking, Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward, they seemed to be into each other when they were in their 60s and 70s, like decades. I don't personally know them, but decades of what seemed like long term fascination. Um, I'm thinking Goldie Hawn and
Kurt Russell.
Kurt Russell,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
Um, Also, she's a Buddhist. She practices mindfulness and meditation. I don't know. I'd have to interview her, but I wonder if that's part of it. Keeping your mind fresh, keeping
Right.
your mind interested. If we can be interested in our career 30 years in, it's proof we can find the novel. We can find the interesting in this meeting, even if we've had 10,000 meetings before.
Right.
Bring that to your love affair. Quit expecting your spouse to ignite it for you and in you
Yeah.
when
And I love
you're sitting on it.
what you just said about careers is what we tell our audience, which is don't throw away the career figure out what's getting in the way of you having a better one. And it's
Yeah.
very similar advice.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
this is the way the human mind works.
right.
And this is the way the majority of us don't train our mind to say, if I'm bored with X, or if I'm upset and freaking out because my car has a flat tire, I get to control that by training my mind, by bringing my mind in alignment with reality. Yes, I've kissed you for 22 years and it doesn't feel as hot as the first 4 times I kissed you. How can I recreate that? How can I show up here and now with mindful, intense awareness, which, by the way, can lead to mind blowing sexual experiences? Because our most mind blowing sexual experiences were when we were locked and loaded in our attention. We were in flow. We were extremely acutely aware of everything. And so your touch on my palm on that date sent shivers of what is like a tantric kind of energetic orgasm through the body. We've all experienced that at some point. That is not dead. Our nerve endings still work. It's a matter of showing up with intense sensory awareness, which is mindful focus, lack of distractedness, really paying attention. That's when, like right now, as I do this, if I'm paying attention, that feels really erotic and beautiful. It literally does. And it's not because I'm some crazy, freaky person. It's because I'm focusing, and there is a tremendous amount of beautiful, pleasurable sensation in fingers on palm. That's my mind's focus. If I was worried about my tax return and doing this, it wouldn't feel like much at all.
Right, right.
It's where the attention is that creates joy. It creates
Ah,
sensory intensity.
it is brilliant. Cheryl, we could go on. I've enjoyed talking to you and learning from you so much. Everyone, again, check it out. Buddha's Bedroom, available anywhere fine books are sold. This coffee has got so many post-it notes in it. It's not even funny, but that's how great this is. So thank you again, Cheryl, and I can't wait to bring more of you to our audience and help make that difference, which is so, so powerful and so critical. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tony. I really appreciate it.
Bye for now.